cancel out violence with violence. It gotta be something we could do, but from what I'm saying, it's like they already got away. The fact that he supposedly did that on accident, I mean, let me have killed somebody on accident, just said, oh, it's an accident, and I mean, I ain't gonna see the light of day.
Convicting him of anything higher than involuntary manslaughter says that the system in which he works for is broken, and they're not going to say that. If Judge Perry wants to really be fair, he's going to give him the maximum sentence of 4 years. He might try to give him 2, and then with time served, he'll be out. I know his mom isn't satisfied. It's not going to bring her son back, so.
That means police can shoot anyone in the back and get away with it. It's terrible. I know people don't raise their sons to be shot by the police.
I have a black son, same age as Oscar Grant was, the day that he was murdered. It could have been my son on that platform.
My son almost got shot by the police. I was involved in police brutality movements in Los Angeles when I was a young man. And to get grown up and to have my son almost become a victim. We need to get some people in the unions and get some strikes, like a general strike shut down Oakland for Oscar Grant, for some justice.
We are here to help assist you with your peaceful protest. This is the Oakland Police Department.
Well, those were some of the scenes in Oakland Friday night as the news broke of the verdict in the Oscar Grant shooting case. As you saw there, the jury came back with a conviction on the lesser of the available charges, but there wasn't the riot that many had been led to expect. And groups like Color Lines, our friends there who brought us the video, report that the reality on the ground was quite different from what those in the mainstream media were leading us all to anticipate.
Yeah, well, as you know, I think most people understand there's been a history of police brutality, of racial profiling, of the overuse of force when it comes to engaging not only black people, but young black men in particular. And it's rare that you have a situation where you've actually got several video cameras essentially capturing the killing of someone who's unarmed, who's posing no imminent threat. It was the kind of thing where on the one hand, you know, it's more of the same. We've come to see and expect this, but we actually, I think, believed. Here you have an officer basically caught red-handed. It seemed to be indisputable in terms of evidence, and there was clear outrage. I mean, this was a young man who was taking the train to not be on the road for safety on New Year's and ends up being shot in the back.
The video shows 3 men sitting on the platform against the wall. 22-year-old Oscar Grant is in the middle. The 2 officers seem to be concerned with Grant and the person to the right. The 3rd man sits for the most part alone with his hands up. At one point, Grant gets up and they push him back down. There seems to be some kind of struggle, although you can't hear what's being said between Grant and the officers. About a minute into the video, another officer steps in and pushes Grant back to the ground. About 15 seconds later, one officer puts his knee on Grant's head, and the other officer seems to do a pat down. Then he pulls his gun, and a second later fires what would be a fatal shot.
I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't surprised. I've been involved in police brutality cases all the way from Anthony Bias, Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, and been following the Oscar Grant trial with the work particularly of the One Fam organization and Tony Coleman. I think I'm more shocked at people's reactions in the movement. There's been people who've been sentenced, you know, people have been sentenced over what they did over Abnu Lorima. That doesn't ensure that justice has been meted out. I think we're at a point where any encounter with a police officer when you're a young black and brown person, from Ayanna Jones to Oscar Grant, can be your last day. And we have to come to the conclusion in the movement. And I was surprised by some of the liberal press saying, well, at least he was convicted. That's not enough.
What's most troubling is, what I think gets lost in the discussion of the verdict, is the fact that this is one killing. We had video. That's the distinguishing factor here. You don't get a conviction. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a banker, a black guy who's a banker downtown San Francisco, and he basically said, look, I don't care about the facts. This is a very fact-oriented guy. I don't care about the facts. What I feel like is a black life can be taken away by an officer, and there's no accountability.
it was a clear videotaping of the situation. That's the only reason, right? And everybody got together around it because we've all been experiencing the same violence, maybe not to that level, but variations of it and degrees of it. We've all been experiencing that in Oakland. And so we see this case as like finally some evidence that can't be disputed, right? Because a lot of the times we get beat up and it's not on video, so it's disputed and it's our word against theirs.
If anyone, if you can imagine, you know, reverse things here, if a young black man had shot a white male adult dressed in a suit in a subway platform, there's no way that person would have any chance of seeing daylight for you know, probably the rest of their lives. We live in a situation where we know that we are essentially targeted and we know that we can't expect justice. And that's just not an America that we should be accepting.